Think about answered prayers, even small things I prayed about when God answered them. I mean, every answered prayer is a God story that I can share.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Midweek Moment, where we talk about faith and life and how the two come together. Today we have Pastor Carter on the show, and we're going to talk about the power of our God story, because we all have a God story. So Pastor Carter, let's dive in. First question for you. We all have God stories. How do we recognize those stories in our lives?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because I think that is why a lot of us don't share them, is we just think, well, I don't know. I haven't seen a miracle healing in my life. I didn't start a nonprofit, do a dramatic career change. I felt that a lot. I mean, even before being a pastor, just a guy showing up at my software job every day, working in my cubicle. So I think part of what God's had to teach me is, how do you recognize God even in the small, ordinary, everyday moments of your life? So I think part of it is learning to recognize that things I used to just think was a coincidence, or I don't know, they're just a conversation. Now I'll be like, hey, I had a conversation connected with someone who didn't know Jesus, and we found something to connect on. Maybe God used that to plant seeds. So I think part of it is learning to recognize things I would normally write off as no big deal, as what if God is using that? So starting to believe that God's always at work. Another way to recognize them would be, think about answered prayers, even small things I prayed about when God answered them. I mean, every answered prayer is a God story that I can share.
That's good. It's keeping track, right? We talk a lot about just the power of journaling. And I know journaling's not for everybody. I'm not a big journaler. In fact, I have, many unused journals at home, but I think there's power in keeping track of everything that God has done, answered prayers. I think one practice that actually my counselor encouraged me to do is periodically open up your journal and just write 3 things you're thankful for.
Oh, yeah.
Because thankfulness kind of cultivates that recognition of like, okay, what is God doing? And I think that's really helpful. As well. Are there other tools that perhaps we could introduce into our lives, or spiritual disciplines perhaps, to help us just be more aware and attentive?
Yeah, I think in spiritual practice of prayer, starting, one thing I'm trying to do now is start to pray more. God, show me where you're at work, today when you head into work, head into some event or something for the kids' school. I'm always praying, God, show me what you're up to. What are you doing? Make me awake and aware to it. Along with the journaling idea, one thing I've started doing is tracking things in my phone. So I figure, well, I always have my phone with me. And so maybe this will make me do it more and read it more. So I try to, even like on a Sunday, like when I get home, just kind of write down, here's some of the conversations I got to have. I got to pray with somebody. And I've learned to write down, even if at the time I'm not sure, is this a big enough deal to count or not? It's like, if it came to mind, I'll write it down. Because then later I'll look at it and go, oh, that was one of the dots, as you connect the dots, like we talked about this week, of the God stories that God's writing. And so, I think just learning to trust that really anything that's happening can be God at work.
That's so good. I love that analogy of connecting the dots. Because when you look at the whole picture, the dots make sense. It's like, those activity pages that we did as kids. You draw the lines, you connect the dots, and then you see this masterpiece. By the way, that was a great message. And if you did not get a chance to catch this weekend's message, the link to that message is going to be in the description. I encourage you to check that out. It's a good one, and it will encourage you. So let's get really practical about our God story. Let's talk about how. How do we craft our God story or God stories? Because, preparation is key, right? And God really honors our preparation. So let's get practical. How do we craft a God story?
Yeah, I think a couple ways. One, when you're talking about the God story, part of your sort of testimony is kind of the old church word for it.
Old school word.
Yeah, right. Your salvation story, your testimony. That is an important piece of your God story for sure. Most helpful way for me ever to think about it is the idea of, be ready to talk about what was my life like before I knew Jesus. And we got to be careful there. It's not about glorifying it. Sometimes people are like, you won't believe the crazy stuff I was into.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm not actually meant to highlight the sin in this story.
Yeah, you don't want to camp there.
Yeah,
right?
Right.
And get into like graphic detail of like, what exactly you did.
Yeah.
How did it smell and what the room was like. I mean, that's just, no one wants to know.
Yeah. They don't need all the details.
Yeah.
And so, I can be real about it. Hey, I was broken. I was into some messed up stuff, but I don't have to almost kind of glorify it. Then it's be super clear. Well, what was the turning point? How did I find Jesus? Whatever that was is really important. Even if you're like, well, I didn't have a dramatic moment with God. I just showed up at church. Okay, showing up at church, that's important. What got you to finally go? Is it someone inviting you? So highlighting that piece. And then the idea of how's my life different afterwards. So here's what he's done since then. Like for me, it wasn't a dramatic conversion, but I would say, you know what? I have a lot more purpose now. I just added purpose to everything that I do. Going to get my hair cut, bringing my kids to the sports, had a new purpose now of looking for opportunities to share my God story. So I think kind of highlighting all of those. And, the second piece of it, because of course your God story isn't just about your initial kind of testimony. It's what is God doing in my life since then. I'm a huge fan of just keep it natural, make it normal, relational, organic, because as soon as you turn into preacher mode or sound like an evangelist, you lose them. So I think one non-threatening way is, a lot of people talk about prayer, right? Hey, you're in my thoughts and prayers. So even learn to say, yeah, I was praying about this thing the other day, and it's been so cool to kind of see how God answered. Like that's a non-threatening way. So that'd be another practical idea.
I like that reminder. Keep it personal because it's your story.
Yeah.
But don't be preachy.
Yeah.
Because, all sorts of walls come up when we start being preachy. The other thing I like to remind people too in crafting their God story is we're not the hero of the story. Jesus is the hero of the story. And our job is just constantly to point back to, hey, look at what God has done in my life. And then he could do the same in your life too. So I like to tell people that as well. And then what kind of length are we shooting for? Obviously not a sermon, right? Or a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you definitely want to keep it concise, right? And brief. And of course that's pastors reminding each other to do that. But, and again, like just what feels natural, right? And sometimes it doesn't all come out at once. Hey, sit down. Let me tell you your God story. I'm dropping in hints of it, tastes of it, little planting seeds throughout. And then, looking for opportunities. If you do end up in kind of a vulnerable kind of conversation with them, maybe late night or something, it's an opportunity to go a little deeper into it. And other times, if you're just at your kid's soccer game sitting next to them, don't go into a deep, heavy emotional story. That's just not the time and place, right? So that would be a spot to just kind of drop something. Hey, I talked about something cool at church last week. And, hey, I was praying about this thing, and man, it's so cool. Did you know, we actually have a way to bring clean water to people? It was pretty cool. I thought I'd give to it, and here's what God did. So just finding those little ways to work it in.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And then one that I could think of too is avoid churchy words.
Yeah.
Because we get the insider language, but, people don't know what sanctification is.
Yeah.
They're like, sanctify who?
Right?
Who is that?
Yeah.
So avoid those churchy words. So that's really good. That's helpful. We're approaching the Easter season, and Easter's a time of hope for us. It's really the cornerstone of our faith as Christ followers, the resurrection of Jesus. So how would you encourage us practically to begin sharing our God story this season and really take advantage of it? Because it's a very important season.
Yeah, I think Easter and Christmas give us unique opportunities to kind of ask people about church, and it doesn't have to feel as weird. Hey, what's your plans for Easter? And you kind of tell me, and I could be like, did you grow up going to church at Easter kind of thing, or then they'll ask me my plans. Yeah, gonna, bring the family to church. Always love it. One of the cool Sundays of the year. And then we're going to go do this. So I think you can actually have a conversation about church really naturally. And I've always thought, for people that are motivated enough that maybe never go to church, they decide we're going to go, the first place they're going to turn is Google or Yelp, right? To try to find one. And I don't know which one looks the least scary to walk into when I don't know anybody. How much better if they could come to a church with someone that they already know. someone who can already answer all their questions, give them the real story. I'll meet you there. So that it's just so much more powerful to be able to do that than them just trying to pick one off a list on Yelp. So again, you really have the opportunity because people are looking for that. And of course, this year, even being able to point people to online. When I post about the online service on my own page, it's not like, hey, you all need to come to this. I like to do hey, if you're looking for a place, hey, if you've ever thought about checking out church, check this out. So I like to try to find those kind of non-threatening ways, put it in front of people.
Yeah. It's like you're inviting someone to sit with you, to come along with you. And this season is almost a natural time where you can assume that people are looking for an Easter service to go to. So what better way than to invite them along with us? I like that a lot. So tell us so you guys are having an Easter and a Good Friday service. Tell us what's happening at your campus in Ocean Beach.
Yeah, doing a Good Friday. It'll be 7 p.m. Going to be outdoors, which means we timed it to be kind of right at sunset. So beautiful. I think that'll be really cool. And I always like that one. You don't have to sit and hear a long sermon from me. It's really more like a worship experience, just kind of music, and then really reflecting on the story of the crucifixion, the Last Supper. So it's really a chance to dig deep into those. We like to say it's not a sad service, but it's a contemplative, right? And a chance to slow down, meditate, contemplate this idea of what Jesus really did for us, what the cross really meant. Take communion as a part of that. We try to do that in a more powerful way. So I really like that idea. And then you get to build up to Easter being all celebratory. It's fun worship songs that are really exciting, and of course a message all about hope. And we'll come up with a great angle on that this year. And again, and I always really try to speak to that if you're going to bring a friend who's never been around church, that I promise they won't feel awkward. And we won't call them out on the spot. And it's not going to be anything weird for them, but it'll be something they can relate to, with some humor, but some real story, some real kind of gospel truth. We'll make sure they hear the gospel clear. And then if you are a Jesus follower, also what's the resurrection still mean for you? So I really like to keep in mind both crowds as we speak to that. And of course, most importantly, we'll have the fresh hot coffee. So for us, that's OB Beans coffee. But we just try to create as welcoming of an environment as we can. Stuff for the kids, for sure. We got stuff to keep them entertained and excited. That's part of it too.
That's so awesome. I love that. I'm excited for it. So if you're looking for an Easter service, we invite you to join us online or in person outdoors. For more information, you can go to our website, easter@newbreak.com, to find out more information. And if you need help crafting your God story, we're here for you. We want to help you. I know Pastor Carter does. We do too. We have a whole team that wants to help you. We know it can be intimidating sometimes, but it's not that hard. So we're here for you. Reach out to us anytime, and we'd love to help you with that. Now, if you found this content to be helpful, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe to this channel to get content just like this every Wednesday. Until next week and next episode, God bless you, and we'll see you soon.